But we'll talk about trends. We'll talk about the whole marketing combination. And why I call it the marketing combination is because sometimes people get concerned about their business name or their product name or just their packaging or maybe their marketing materials, but really it's that whole combination that makes a difference. And so I'll present a marketing combination to you today. Some of you may sell directly to consumers, others may sell to wholesale buyers. So we'll talk about both of those marketing channels. And with all of the increased interest in local food and local economies, there's just tremendous opportunity, not only in Ohio where we have, lots of populations, like 15 different metropolitan statistical areas, and land and roads transport products, but not only in Ohio, but you've probably all seen a lot of interest in local economies and local food. So that's really going to turn out as a great opportunity for everybody. With grocery stores, if you sell to those markets, the trend in local is, if you look at in their survey, what's important to grocery store managers, 86% really want to provide local products. So that's an opportunity for you if you do or don't sell to grocery stores. With restaurants, some of the trends that came out the first of this year, you'll see common words are locally produced, farm estate branded ingredients. And this one kind of cracks me up a little bit because I know all my friends that have farms, they're like, I don't think my farm's really an estate or that I have a brand. But from a buyer's point of view, you have the opportunity to tell your farm story, and that can become part of their story. And so they see that as real added value when you think, hey, I just have a little place over here. That's kind of what they call it at that level. Another trend that we see are anything artisan, and I've even seen artisan labeled honey out there. And there's not particularly any guidelines that say this is or isn't artisan, and what does that really mean? I think it just means something unique. And some of those trends go to artisan spirits. That would include meaderies that are growing, not just the breweries and the wineries, but also the distilleries. So opportunities for you with restaurants if you have interest in that. And looking at the Food Institute, they have weekly reports come out on food trends. And it was interesting, some of the trends that I saw here this year were an increase in snacking. And so for some of you that do smaller packaging or develop products that are geared toward that increase in snacking, that's an opportunity. And also specialty food sales are reaching new heights, which a lot of your products are considered. The framework that I'm going to use today is something, a curriculum that we call MarketReady. And with that, it looks at different, what we call marketing channels. And if you sell directly to wholesale buyers, you might be selling to chefs, restaurants, caterers, bakeries, grocery stores and other specialty retailers and gift shops, food service providers. In fact, I was talking to a school food service director yesterday, and he was so excited about honey. He's like, oh, I can't wait to serve the honey to the students with their chickens. They can dip their little chicken nuggets in there. And he's like, do you know that honey can help with, if they buy local honey, it really helps with, their local response to allergies and all those kinds of things. And he was so excited. And one honey producer educated him enough, and he's somebody who buys local food for his, serves 3,000 meals a day. So he was excited about that, and I thought that was great to hear. Also, food processors buy some of your products. So those are the wholesale channels. Some of the consumer channels that you might sell at already or look at selling at are on and off farm markets and farmers markets, which are more community markets. Some of you may sell through community supported agriculture or CSAs. And if you're not familiar with that, as farmers at the beginning or pre-season sell shares or memberships in their farm, and consumers pay up front, anywhere between about $400 to $800, depending on what all is included in a CSA. And then during the harvest season, in Ohio, it's an average of 20 weeks, but in every state it varies a little bit differently. But for the harvest season, then that family or that person gets a share of the harvest. And so what some CSAs have done, they might have started with vegetables and then added fruits and then added some other value-added products. And for some, that might include honey or maple syrup. And farmers are working together for CSAs. And so that might be another opportunity for you. And then agritourism. You've probably seen honey festivals out there, visits to honey farms, and a lot of education and opportunities that go along with that as well. So regardless of what marketing channel or channels that you currently use, you might want to explore different ones. But it's really valuable to look at how you as a seller or marketer can connect with these buyers. The marketing combination that I want to introduce you today, and it's really the framework that will follow through the rest of this presentation, is I've worked in marketing for about 30 years now, and I've heard a ton of different definitions. But one that has really stayed strong for me and hit home for me was marketing is not only much broader than selling, it's the whole business seen from the customer's point of view. And so if you're selling to seniors, what does that mean, for them as far as carrying heavy products or the size of the products? If you're selling to families with young children, how might that change your packaging or labeling or positioning and colors and all of that? So it really is everything from the customer's point of view. So it's great to start your marketing by trying to think like your customers. And it's sometimes that's hard because we're used to thinking like ourselves. And you think about pricing, for example, and you think, wow, that's priced really high. Well, if the market supports that and they see added value in the products that you created, then there might be an opportunity to take advantage of that. But let's start with this marketing combination. It begins the middle with people and thinking like your customers. Again, whether that's directly to consumers or you're working with wholesale buyers, and understanding how they operate, what's important to them, and really, things that their willingness to pay, willingness to travel, whatever it might be. And I've heard people say that, what, if there's a market out there, you ought to go after it. But I don't think that's always true, because the other part of this people equation is it a fit for you? I've seen some farms that want to grow and they want to start selling to wholesale markets, and they want to expand their business and support additional people from the family with their business operation, and they're all in and they want to grow. And I've seen other farms that they want to stay smaller and they want to sell to a small local market, and that works for them. And so I think it's really important to keep that people, that fit. For example, I have a couple hundred acres in the beautiful rolling hills of southern Ohio, and I have trails and an old 1800 some cabin, and people are like, oh, you should have a bed and breakfast. And I think, well, I didn't buy this particular property to share necessarily, and I can't cook. So not only do I not have the interest, I don't have the capacity. Now, if I ran some numbers and I looked at the marketing opportunity, I might think, well, maybe I would do this, and I still, I could take cooking lessons, or I could hire that out. So as you look at your own interest, your own capacity, you want to find that fit with the market. So then based on that, you can develop your products, because if you're developing products for schools, it will be different than if you're developing for a farmer's market, as an example. Look at what places of distribution and how to make it convenient for people, what kind of promotions and communications that you're going to do, and then kind of pulling all together that plan and process to make sure that you're accomplishing your business goals. That if you set out to make a certain amount of money, that it makes sense for you in a marketing plan and business plan to do that. That if you are looking at a calendar, that your calendar of activities kind of flow so that things aren't overlapping. So let's take a look at each one of these in the marketing combination. The people part. Customers, can you think like them? Again, with all the different customers that are out there, you really want to do a little bit of research and find out what's important to them. And it's very interesting to see how businesses do that today. Some just get general trend information. With direct marketing, you have a tremendous opportunity to do a lot of listening and have conversations with customers. With online technology, people are doing what's called crowdsourcing and putting things online to get customer feedback, whether that's something informal on a Facebook site or that's a more formal survey that you want to do. There's some online things to do some crowdsourcing, and that's fun. If you want to take a look at an example of that, check out Kickstarter.com. So trying to think like your customers is the first part. To think like a direct marketer. Some common things with direct marketers, why they sell locally, lots of good reasons there. Satisfying experience, that sense of community that many of you may feel. Compatible philosophy with the type of business and their sustainability, for example, and the market opportunity. But the things to consider for yourself, how does it fit with your own personal, family, or business goals? Do you have the resources and the strength to do it? And if not, how can you access those? And does it fit your lifestyle and the motivations that you have? So that's really the people part. As we look at the product selection and supply basically means, do you have enough of the product? Do you have it in the right size, sizes that they want? And then you look at the packaging and labeling, the pricing, invoicing, and payments. So let's look at some of those. The product selection and supply. Some of the products that you may offer are honey in different forms, beeswax, candles, mead, agritourism, lots of opportunities with that, and pollen, and some of the other things that you might consider products that you sell. Are there important qualities or attributes to those products? I've seen organic, kosher, artisan labels put on different bee products. Do you have the right quantity that somebody needs? For example, I mentioned that school food service buyer. How often would he want to buy honey? Can he store it? Do you store it? And in what quantities does he need that? With product selection and supply, the concept of product depth or product breadth means product depth would be that you specialize in bee products and you've done season extension things, product line extension things, and you have a lot of depth there with bee products. Product breadth might be that you do honey, but you also have many other things that you sell from your farm. And you have a variety of things and you're selling the whole farm concept. Timing, do you have product available when people need it, your customers want it, and specialized versus commoditized. Commoditized would be more selling it to the school in bulk. Specialized would be special packaging and labeling and positioning, something unique or different maybe by something that you added to your bee product so that from the customer's point of view, it's something they couldn't get someplace else, so they have a more willingness to pay more for something like that. And really with all of these, it's not a right or wrong if you have product depth or breadth. It's not right or wrong if you have a lot of something or a little of something or it's specialized. It's a matter of just giving yourself the opportunity to think about these things instead of doing it by default. And so, again, not right or wrong, but just some questions for you to ask yourself to say, hey, from my customer's point of view, as well as from what I want to do, how do things fit here? With packaging and labeling, you can see this image here in the middle from the Nude Bee Honey Company. And, I'm sure they did their market research and they, not only came up with some interesting and different specialized, unique packaging, but they probably don't sell to the school market a product called Nude Bee Honey. But with packaging and labeling? It provides a lot of different things to consider when you are selecting your packaging. Does it provide the right protection? How can it assist you in marketing? Some people I've seen include, a spoon tied onto a honey jar or something like that, which adds to the function. I've seen some additional things on a label that add education about what can be done or recipes, reinforcing the brand, certainly, and then can you differentiate yourself from other bee products out there, whether that be food related or soaps or lotions or some of the other products that we talked about earlier. Can you use your packaging to help differentiate yourself? Make sure you meet your regulations, and as Denise said at the beginning of this webinar, she's got a document there on some Ohio regulations. I would suggest working with your Department of Agriculture and Department of Health to make sure you know what the regulations are as far as your packaging and specifically your labeling go. And then making sure it's cost effective, because as we talk about pricing here in just a couple of minutes, you want to make sure that you know all your costs. And again, not only looking at it from your own point of view, but from your customer's point of view. And maybe a different packaging adds enough value that they are willing to pay something additional for a product. But is it cost effective? There's a nice resource here, the food and beverage packaging.com, to look at some not only bee product packaging, but I always think it's good to look at other products that maybe consumers would buy instead of your product, and look at some things that are going on there and see what you can learn. With food labeling, there's some national resources for you here. If you are selling from a meadery, making sure you work with your Division of Liquor Control. Again, there's certainly market support for something like that, and you can decide if that fits with your business interest or not. On the labeling, you can use appropriate certifications. For us, one is Ohio Proud with our Department of Agriculture. If you have organic products and you've been through that certification process, making sure that you have those appropriate certifications, not only because you're Ohio Proud, but if that's an added value for your customers, from their point of view, they like to see that, you would want to include those. A UPC code, there's options, there's information on there how to get a UPC code. And then QR codes are new things that are done with mobile devices. There's an example, it might be a little hard to see on this slide, but up there on that wine bottle is a square code or image, and that can be scanned by your mobile phone or mobile device, and then that can take you someplace else. So if you haven't heard about QR codes, you can learn more about that. But you're seeing that more on packaging, and You can take people directly to a site that includes information about your company or information, recipes, or anything that you want that, again, they would think, is a little bit value added there. And you can include that if there's room on your label. Okay, so after you've talked about your, product selection and supply and taken a look at the packaging and labeling, then you really want to look at pricing. And not before, because you need to know how much your packaging and labeling is going to cost so that you factor in those costs. So that's why I put the pricing in at this point. There are different strategies for pricing. We could spend a whole day on this, but I'll just touch briefly on a couple of different strategies. One is bottom up. Figure out all your costs, and that's your starting point, and then figure out, how much more you want to earn, or what kind of margin you want to earn on that. Some things that might influence your final decision would be, what's the competition charging and how much our customers are willing to pay, again, from their point of view. The challenge with bottom up or even top down is, you can set a retail price and then look at, are you covering all your costs and is the profit enough? The challenge with both of those is making sure that you do factor in all of your costs. And sometimes as small businesses and as farmers or beekeepers, it's hard to make sure that you've included all of those costs, including your time, including your travel, and some of those fees that we talked about up there if you have to have a UPC code, for example. So that's one strategy. The other starting point option is what are customers willing to pay? And sometimes what influences this is the supply and demand. For example, if you have something at the pre-season or at the end of the season, if that's a factor for you, that you can get a higher price for it because there's not a lot of it in the market. If you have something unique, that kind of specialized product we talked about earlier, there's usually a higher willingness to pay. For example, if you just looked at your types of buyers, and let's say they're women between the age of 30 and 60 or something like that, whatever you might know about your current buyers or buyers that buy bee products, you look at that. You really want to know a lot more about your customers. For example, if you looked at myself and my sister, we're 15 months apart, both have similar demographic type of information, but we're different in, like, say, if you were to sell us berries, I would want to pick my own berries. I would want to know how they were grown, and I'd want to buy them in bulk because I know what I'm going to do with them, and I would be a little cheap about it because I'm pretty cost conscious. If you were to sell to my sister and you put 12 berries into a really unique little container that looked like an eggshell type of container, and you put a gold label on top of that, and you had that unique product, she would probably pay like $8 for that. And she wouldn't just buy one, she would buy about 20 to give them as gifts because she's not buying food. She's not buying berries. She's buying something unique. And so when you look at what products you've developed and how they're packaged and how you present them, try to look at it from a customer's point of view. So they have to have not only the willingness to pay, but they also have the ability to pay. And so that you want to, make sure that you're selling in a market where that works. You've probably seen farmers in your community, and maybe you're one of them that sell at different farmers markets. Maybe they drive an hour or more to get to a community that has a higher ability to pay, not just the willingness to pay. But look at the whole perceived value from the customer's point of view. Some people think, if I saw my sister do that, I think, man, that's crazy. But if there's enough market to support that, it's really not that crazy because you're satisfying some needs that she has beyond, what you might consider from your own point of view. And then also, what image do you want to convey? Do you want to be, there's different market considerations. What I have here is penetration rate and skimming the market. Market penetration is more like the Walmart model. You want to sell a whole lot of units and just make a small margin on every single one. Market rate is, well, what is everybody else kind of selling this same type of product for and falling within that range? And skimming the market is deciding to sell a smaller number of units. Maybe you don't have a large capacity. You have limited capacity and you don't want to get additional land or additional bees. And you want to have a small number of product, but you need to, in order to make your business goals, have a higher margin to make more dollars per unit. And that's selling to my sister, basically, skimming the market. And so again, not a right or wrong with that, just recognizing that your pricing strategy, you might want to consider that. And then there's some other strategies. You can bundle products together if that adds value from the customer's point of view, or you want to introduce a new product. A loss leader is maybe you have a standard type of product that meets a market need, and then you introduce new products and you make more money on the new products. and maybe not much on that base product. And then just providing any opportunities for us as humans to make impulse purchases. So wherever you have kind of a point of purchase is what POP means, that you might have some additional sales opportunities there. So that's a little bit about pricing. With payment, people pay different ways now. Wholesale customers, if you're selling to them, you want to know what's their invoicing system and selling directly to consumers. The image up here at the top of the slide here is called the square. And you can use that now to attach to a mobile phone or a tablet device. And you can use it to swipe credit cards. And people then just sign your phone, and that goes, an email goes directly to them. And the purchase is transacted that way. It's cheaper than using a credit card machine. And we've seen a big increase in that over the last 2-3 years. And I think that, with some of the people involved, some of the companies involved, that you'll see an increase in mobile payments. But, if you only take cash, is there an ATM close? Do you take checks or not? What are your policies about that? And do you take credit cards? With restaurants, bakeries, and caterers, they pay a little bit more than grocery stores. So when it comes to wholesale buyers, consider what the pricing might be, and all the other considerations to make sure that you've covered your cost in working with some of those wholesale buyers. With grocery stores and other specialty retail shops, they usually go with margin-based retail pricing. And basically, they want to make sure that they cover their margins, and they have a set rate. And so if they're, again, I could do a whole session just on this to show how margin-based retail pricing works. But just in talking with wholesale buyers, understand what their margins are that they're trying to achieve so that they can stay in business too. You can sell to or with other farmers, not only through a CSA that maybe your product is distributed through, if they're allowed to do it at their farmers markets. Some other farmers, buy from other farmers, and then they take it and they sell it at other markets. They're allowed to do that. And just again, paying attention that they're how they operate, or do they require invoices? Do they have bills of lading? Talking to schools, I was talking to somebody at Kenyon College a few days ago, and they do a lot of local purchasing, and that's a private college in Central Ohio here. And they are one of the only people I know when it comes to a large institution like that actually still pays cash at time of pickup. So that's a unique model. Our university, Ohio State University, they try to buy a lot of local as well, and they've made some changes in their billing system so that they can actually do 14 days net after pickup or delivery, which is better than 60 or 90. But you'll want to know that ahead of time, how these people pay, so that you can factor in that in your cash flow. Because the last thing you want to do is have a great new big wholesale customer and then have all that money out at a time when you might need that. So we've talked about people and trying to understand how your customers think and what's important to you. We've talked about product selection, supply, packaging and labeling, pricing and payments. And now looking at place. How can you get your B products to people at a time and place that's convenient for them? Because as humans, that's what creates satisfaction. But some things to consider with place are distribution and storage. That's a factor. Signage and merchandising if you sell directly to consumers, and kind of what's going on in the marketing environment. So before I click on the next slide to look at this, I'll explain this image. The car up top has berries in the back. That's the old distribution model somebody tried, and that picture's cropped out a little bit for a number of reasons. One is because that car got stuck in the mud, and two, it was a state vehicle. So we kind of cropped that out. The new distribution model, you can see that now this entrepreneur that this agency was working with has grown and has a refrigerated truck for them. But you want to know, how can you get your products to market in a safe and convenient way and still kind of protects the products and everything that goes into that. With distribution, the marketing concept behind this is, do you want to have intensive distribution? Your honey products, your bee products are available, not just honey, sorry, all bee products. Are they available to, your market area that you want to attract? Are they available everywhere? That would be intensive. Selective would be, there's just a few marketing outlets that you sell at. And so you know that you're very targeted with your marketing, and it's selective distribution and maybe even an added value for people to only find it at these unique places. And exclusive distribution is where you take that even to the next level, and you kind of have exclusive rights that you can only get it at this particular place. And you might have some wholesale customers that say, hey, I really don't want you to sell it to such and such. I really want to buy such a large amount from you that I want to use this product that you have as a competitive advantage for my retail outlet. And so I don't want it to be available everywhere. But that might be a conversation that you could have with if you do sell to wholesale customers. Again, this is not a right or wrong selection for you. And it's just something for you to think about, so you don't do it by default, but you think about it and maybe think about that with your distribution. We surveyed 115 grocery store and restaurant buyers when we were preparing this market-ready curriculum. We asked them some things that were important to them. When it came to distribution, they said in working with growers that they saw lots of different models out there. Some farmers and some food producers or product producers provided their own delivery, and they took it directly to the wholesale buyer. Some had shared delivery with other producers. Some had prearranged pickup points, and so they had CSAs do this a lot, the community supported agriculture, where their members or shareholders can pick it up at select farmers markets where the vendor sells. Third-party delivery companies is an option. You want to factor in that cost if that's something that you want to use. Wholesaler or distributor working with restaurants or with other wholesale buyers. Since they already have the distribution infrastructure, maybe you can tap into that. And again, with the interest in growing and buying local or selling local, more and more distributors and people who are traveling and distributing their products, more producers are interested in working together and doing that. But each system has its own benefits and its own cost. If you sell directly to consumers, signage and merchandising will be important to you. There are different signs. One is wayfinding, how they find your place. And I was just driving home last night from someplace and saw a big honey farm sign, and I thought, yeah, I should take a picture of that. That's a really neat wayfinding sign, how people find it. Then when people do get there, on-premises signage to make it easy for them to operate or move around if you have a farm stand or something. And then the point of purchase signing. The different signs have different needs. Some are directing or to help you find you. Some are to inform and educate. Some are helping consumers select a product or take other actions that you want them to do. Some answer common questions or solve problems, and some really all should reinforce your positioning or your branding. Again, just as you look at your own signage, recognize that some of these signs have different purposes, and you want to make sure that from a customer's point of view, they can be seen. The picture here at this farm stand has signs that maybe might not be the best looking signs in the world, but what I liked about that one is they had them at a high level so that people could see them even when there were a lot of people standing around a farm stand. And I've been to farms before, and they've had some beautiful signs. And I thought, well, that's really nice. But when there's a crowd of people here because they had a festival, the signs were too low and they couldn't be seen. Some other things, when you think of signage, if you're selling to, from a customer's point of view, again, if you're selling to young families with children, you want to have fun signs, maybe with characters on them. And if you're selling to older people, you'll want to have signs with really big lettering so we can actually see the stuff. So look at your signage not only from your own point of view and what it's supposed to do, but also look at it from a customer's point of view as if the market was open. Some elements of good signage, and at the bottom of this slide are some good resources for you. And as Denise mentioned, you can get a copy of this presentation right from the webinar or from her website. But you can see on here, simple, clear messages, don't use all caps. Fancy fonts have their own problems. Size of letters, as I mentioned, is important, but also our color combinations. If you can't see that, that's a yellow font, and so that might not work. But it's not just the color of the font. I looked at a really beautiful sign that was done in green, and then they put the sign up, and the background was a bunch of green trees, and you really lost the sign. So don't only think about the sign, but where it's going to be. There's a good resource out there that talks about the size of the letters. So if you're going to have a sign that's visible, like say one of your wayfinding signs that has to be visible by a certain distance, how large you want the letters to be. And the first time you look at that sign when it's made, you're like, that is huge. And then you put up the sign and you're like, oh, okay, it does look good that way. So just some other things to consider that you can go into depth if you want on color psychology, but you want to have some consistency, with your signage. Make sure it's appropriate material so that if it's going to be outdoor all the time as a permanent sign, that it can weather that, or if it's going to be temporary, that it's easy to put up and take down. And then also, as I mentioned, consider the background of signage. With point of purchase signs, some common things to include are really, what is this? And you think, as a bee product producer, you're like, it's obvious what this is. But consumers are funny. We need a little more education. So it's good to have what the product is, product name, and the quantity, and or the weight of it. Um, any information on what I do with this and how much it costs. You can go into benefits, and I say benefits instead of features because that's a common marketing mistake. Is you want to talk all about, your bees and why this honey is so good and all the features of it, and you really want to focus on the benefits to the consumers, because as consumers we're thinking, okay, why is this important to me? And sometimes we get lost when marketers go off and talk about all the features, and they should just talk about, okay, the benefit. And then including your branding on your point of purchase signs. With merchandising, there's a really great publication out of the University of Tennessee on merchandising, but some common things to consider are, is it inviting and interactive, showing some abundance but not perfection. Like if you were to stack up a lot of your bee products in a perfect pyramid or something like that, some people won't take any because they don't want to mess it up. It looked too nice. But showing that you have enough. Creating some level of experience. Shopping is a sensory experience, and so if you can, think about from a customer's point of view, not only what they see, but what they hear and maybe what they smell, and if you have taste testing opportunities, if it's a food product. Looking at the height of the product, and including your signage, slope shelves, if you need lighting in a particular area, again, from your customer's point of view, if they can't see the product, is that hard? What decisions and actions do you want to make if you have signage that says, or your marketing materials include something that says, take this number down to pre-order for next week, or whatever it might be. Just, again, what actions do you want your customers to take, and how can you use your merchandising and signage to prompt that? What do you want them to do? For example, I was picked up some food to go at a restaurant recently, and as I went to the parking spot, they had parking spots just for pickup. And right in front, as I parked, was a sign, and at eye level for me in the car said, put this number in your mobile phone so it's convenient for you for next time. And so I thought, that's great. That's what they want me to do. They want me to order again. That's a great idea. And they made it really convenient to do. So you think about from your customer's point of view. Do you want them to buy, 3 for the price of 2? Do you want them to take one home for the family? Whatever you can do to help prompt that action. Parking and surroundings. This was interesting for me. I was talking to an older person recently, and they'd been at a farmer's market. And the one vendor that was selling there had moved their table about maybe just 6 feet off the common pathway under the tree, so it would be more shaded. And the vendor, I talked to them too, and they said, I thought that would be a good thing because it was kind of warm out that day, and the customers might be more comfortable shopping in a, out of that direct sunlight. And then I talked to the older person. They're like 6 feet at my age to walk across grass. I can't really see my footing that well, and with my joints the way they are, I didn't feel comfortable even walking 6 feet, through that grassy area. So when I say everything is from the customer's point of view, something that you thought might be a good thing, if you watch customers, you might observe something else, or if you talk to them, you might observe something else. But if you're selling direct to consumer, some things, if you have parking, some things to consider. I won't go through all of those because of time right now. And then surroundings. If you have a lot of traffic coming through for a honey festival example, or for a agritourism opportunity that you have on your bee farm, paying attention to how that might affect your neighbors in the area, and are there some things you can do to make that convenient. The marketing environment, look around and see not only what you've been paying attention to, maybe with your parking and your signage and your merchandising and everything else, but look around and from the customer's point of view, maybe what haven't you been paying attention to? Have you really maintained your signs? Have you let some of the boards come off your buildings, and is that the image you want to portray or not? Are there things that you can do as far as mulching, weed control, anything to make it look like a great atmosphere, a great experience for people? Is it important to you to preserve the farm atmosphere? I've heard debates over this. I see agritourism operations, for example, that have added all kinds of activities that are not directly farm related. And then I have talked to other farms, and they want to preserve that farm atmosphere, and they've painted their buildings, all the same color, so they're all barn red. And they've, their staff wears uniforms that would look like, the bib overall kind of things. They're preserving that farm atmosphere. So just consider that for yourself. Is there anything that you want to do that might be good from the customer's point of view, as well as what the images that you want to portray? Making sure things match your brand. Are there any barriers you're creating, like that 6 feet of grass from the customer's point of view? And are there things visible in unused areas? And that might be a spray tank you have somewhere that creates a question in the customer's point of view, like, I wonder how much they spray this stuff. So looking around from the customer's point of view and what else might be going on. Beyond that, your own environment, looking around and saying, hey, what's happening around me and what's happening around my customers that might be important? And is there any additional marketing opportunity or threat for me here? Politically, are there things going on that I might be able to tap into? Environmentally, the economy, like people wanting to contribute to the local economy. Socially, things going on, technology, and then kind of what's also going on with your competitors, and seeing if there's anything that might shift your marketing messages at all. Just being aware of that. We've talked about people and product. We've talked about place, whether you sell, look at your distribution, selling to wholesale customers or selling directly to retail, consumers, directly retail. And now we're going to talk a little bit about promotion. And usually when we talk about marketing, people want to jump right to promotion, like, hey, should I do an ad in the newspaper? Or, is it important for me to have a Facebook page? So that's where people want to start, is at promotion. But I hope you're seeing that you really want to look, beginning at this marketing combination, with people first from a customer's point of view and understanding what's important to them, and as well as to yourself. And then really making decisions about your product and packaging and labeling and your distribution before you go into this promotion, so that you can have clear promotion. So let's look at that. If you're selling to wholesale customers, you not only have an opportunity to sell directly to these grocery stores, restaurants, bakeries, but you have an opportunity to sell with them. Become what one of my friends at AceNet, which is a food incubator in Athens, Ohio, Leslie Schaller, the term she uses is you become market partners. And I love that, because they're not just a customer of yours, but as market partners, you want their customers to be happy. Because if their customers are happy and willing to pay, then their business stays in business. If their business stays in business and pays you on time, then you can stay in business. So here's an example. This is a farm-to-menu website. It's from another state. And this particular bakery, the Honeybee Bakery, includes a link on their website to all the different farms that they buy product from. So you can see, well, it's really small and hard to see right now, but you can see, that if you went to their website, this farm-to-menu website, that you would see the local honey farm that they buy honey from, as well as the other farms that they buy product from. So this is a great opportunity if you sell to wholesale buyers. Even the school buyer that I talked to yesterday, Tom, was saying, I give the students bookmarks. So now not only will I give them one on the new vegetables that we're offering because of the meal requirements required by USDA right now, but I'll have one on the vegetables, one on the fruits, and I'm going to have one on honey. And so opportunities to be a market partner with a school, a grocery store, a restaurant, a bakery, whoever else you might sell to. With social media, I don't know how many people, we didn't include a poll today, but they didn't, work much with social media. But if this is important from your customer's point of view, you'll want to pay attention to this. But social media, some people think I don't want to get into that. I don't want a Facebook site. I'm not going to be a blogger. That's not important to me. I don't think it's important to my customers, and my business is fine without it. Well, one thing I would suggest to you is that you Google your own farm name or your own product names and see what people are already saying online. Because even though you think you might not be out there in the social media universe, odds are that you are. For example, I was talking with a friend and colleague, and he has Leeds Family Farm. And a couple years ago, he thought, I don't want to get into this. My business is growing fine. I'm in a good spot. And I said, well, just Google your farm name and see what happens. And he did. And he saw a posting, and it was a blog posting that said, Leeds Family Farm, not as much fun as last year. And he's like, oh, I need to be a part of that conversation. I need to get out there. And so even if you think you might not be online, you can use Google Alerts or Social Mention. There are some other ones as well. But you can register your business name, product name, and you can decide how often you want to be alerted. And then you'll get an email notice about when people are talking about you. And this is a great opportunity for you to see what people are saying, whether you are active online or not active online. Blogs are a good opportunity, whether it's your own blog or it's a community blog talking about things happening in the community, for you to be a part of that. It's kind of a new media instead of just working with a newspaper, TV station, or radio station. There are a lot of blog writers out there. Twitter is another opportunity where people communicate in about 140 characters or less, so it's kind of short little comments. Again, I could spend a whole day just on social media marketing, but just briefly, social networking is things like Facebook. Photos and videos are shared on Flickr, YouTube, and Vimeo, and some other sites on there. A trend that we're seeing is mobile media. People are not just using computers, but using their mobile devices, whether that be a mobile phone or a tablet, but they're using that mobile media to find you, to talk about you, and you really want to see, is that an opportunity or important to your customers, and how you can be involved in that. The example I have up here is a Facebook page from the Red Bee honey products. A good opportunity to see where they had 370 likes out there, or people that have commented about their products. So first thing I would do is just poke around at some of these sites, get familiar with them if you're not already online, and then decide what's important to you. And there are lots of additional educational opportunities. I know we have a whole social media webinar series that we do with Penn State every winter. So lots of opportunities to learn more about social media marketing from your own point of view as well as your customers. The top benefits of social media for food retailers, this research that came out at the beginning of this year, why do it? Building relationships with current or new customers is number one. So it wasn't just awareness and getting new customers, but it was about that relationship building. And if there's anything I've learned in marketing, it is about these relationships, because it's much more costly to get new customers than it is to maintain the relationships that you have with current customers. But secondary advantage there or benefit is generate exposure for my business, to get feedback, to communicate in timely manners, and to reduce my overall marketing expense. So it's not just because people are cheap, but word of mouth marketing with social media marketing has really taken off, and it's a great opportunity to take a look at. There are lots of different directories out there where you want to make sure that your bee products are listed. There are about 20 states now that have a program called Market Maker, and our site's ohiomarketmaker.com, but if you just Google Market Maker, it started at the University of Illinois, and now it's spread to 20 states, and it's still growing. But that's one place where you can have a business profile. There's a buy-sell form where you can promote your products or buy inputs if you need inputs. Lots of good market data demographics, food consumption data, all the census tract data is on there. So if you have to put together a business plan or something and you want to see kind of your community demographics, you can take a look at that as well. So I guess what I want to share is that there are listings out there, directories, as well as some resources that you can tap into. Here's some other ones you might want to take a look at. honeylocator.com. Localharvest.org has a section just on bee products. Always hear good things about that site. In Ohio or in your state, you might have some specific sites. Here in Ohio, we have our Ohio, which is our Farm Bureau's site for consumers, and Ohio Proud from our Department of Agriculture. And I mentioned maps and apps just to reinforce that if you're interested in how people are finding food businesses and fun opportunities with their mobile devices, we'll have a whole webinar on that. But there are ways that you can go to like Google Places or MapQuest Vibe and make sure your listing is accurate, your directions are accurate, that if you want to enhance your site, you can. If you want to be a part of GPS systems, like on the car dashboards, and when people push find food, that they can find you. Use apps like Foursquare that people actually do check-in services, and not only find a place, but tell people where they are and make comments about why they should go there. So fun opportunities to take a look at for using some online technologies to promote your business. Here's one example of learning more on social media. Our Farm Bureau organization has some great stuff online that's not only valuable for Ohio producers, but others. You might want to look at your own community and see where you can learn more about social media. University of Nebraska and some of other colleagues here in our extension system put together a really neat direct marketing food specialty products guide. If you want to sell online, this is a great guide. You can walk through it just like it was a book online. There's videos you can click on and see more. So if you want to sell your products online, this is a tremendous resource for you. Okay, so we've talked about people, product, place, promotion, plan, and process. This is the last part of the marketing combination. But this is where you want to make sure that you've taken care of business, basically. Do you have the right insurance liability needs? It might be, if you go sell to a farmer's market, it might be a certain level. If you're selling to a grocery store, they might have a higher level of liability requirement that you need to have. If you're having people visit your farm, how does that change your insurance requirements? So that's a good conversation for you to have with your local insurance provider, as well as with your buyers to see what the requirements are. Have you taken care of any quality assurance and quality measures that you need to take care of? Have you taken care of your regulations and factored in what kind of paperwork and costs or expenses might be included with that? Are there certifications that you want to have or need to have? Are there opportunities to work cooperatively with other farmers? Are there any management or financial capacity concerns that you need to have as you go to a new market? And how can you take care of those? And really putting together a marketing or business plan. So let's take a look at just a couple of those. We have a great Ohio Cooperative Development Center here in Ohio, but many states have USDA-funded cooperative development centers. If there's not one in your area and you want to learn more about that, you can let me know, or just contact the closest one to you, and you can learn more about opportunities as farmers come together to reach new markets. You can look at regional organizations, not just statewide, but an example here in Ohio is there's one called ohiofoodshed.org. So if you sell food products, tapping into those local food organizations, not just the statewide ones, but some regional ones. There are some other organizations here in Ohio, for example. OFA is one that works primarily with organic and sustainable farms. Our Ohio is from Farm Bureau. Again, just look at the opportunities to work cooperatively with regional organizations, statewide organizations, and maybe other businesses in your area. Resource management and personnel. I love this picture. One of my colleagues took it out of state, and this is a mother-daughter team at a farmer's market. And I don't know what the daughter is thinking, but it doesn't look good from a customer's point of view. And my colleague Eric added this quote: "One person with passion is better than 40 people merely interested." And I think one of the neat things about every bee product person I've met has such great enthusiasm. And so I think don't hide that from your customers, because what excited my school food service buyer about honey was another person just sharing their enthusiasm, sharing the information, and making it accessible and kind of going through the steps we talked about today to enter that new market. So when I say marketing is everything from the customer's point of view, it's not just everything we've talked about, but it's how they see you and how you present yourself, and if you have employees working with you, how they present themselves. So all this can be put together in a marketing or business plan. If you want a template for that, I can add it. I can provide to Denise, and she can put it on the website as well. But whether it's on a napkin or whether it's on a computer, it depends what you need it for. Most people put together business or marketing plans when they're developing a new product or they need some new financing. But just going through that steps of, can I write down, summarize, hey, this is what I know about my customers. This is what I know about what's important to me and what I want to achieve. These are the products I sell in the packaging and the labeling and the pricing to different markets. These are the places I distribute and how I take care of my distribution, my signage, my merchandising. These are my promotions and communications, traditional and social media. I know I talked quite a bit about social media, but what I hear from farmers and other small business owners is they're using blended. They're using traditional and social new media. And then plan and process, again, taking care of just the bulleted items I gave to you today. Usually this Market Ready program is something we teach all day long. We've started at the University of Kentucky, and lots of us in different states have adapted it for our states and for our needs. But it could be a whole day long workshop. So what I'm running through very quickly for you is kind of this marketing combination to hopefully whether you're just getting started in marketing or you are making changes and reconsidering what you're doing in marketing, maybe look at things a little bit differently and seeing, are you accomplishing what you want to accomplish. Some other resources that you probably already are aware of from your state and nationally, definitely go to blab.osu.edu, who's hosting this webinar today. And if you want my contact information, my name is Julie Fox. My colleague's name is Julie Moose. We do get a lot of jokes about that, being the fox and the moose, but feel free to contact either one of us, and we'll be able to, if you want further information or resources on any of the things we mentioned today, be happy to visit with you more. So at this time, I'll go ahead and open it up to Denise and questions and answers, and we can maybe take it from there.
Okay, great. Thanks, Julie. Really great session. Looks like a couple folks are typing. So go ahead, and if you have a question for Julie, go ahead and type that into our conversation pod. Or if you didn't put in your city and state, if you'll do me the favor of putting that into the conversation pod.
I do see a question there about why very little interest in comb honey. At one time, very big interest in use. My guess, I'm not certain about this because I hadn't seen the market research on it, but is we need to educate consumers more about the benefits and use of it, because as consumers get further away from sources of food and sources from the farms, they don't know what to do. I get calls in February in Ohio asking where they can go pick blueberries. And so I think that's ridiculous. Well, from a customer's point of view, it's not ridiculous. Their kids are at home and they have to find something to do. So they don't care what it is. So I think that might be one factor in that little less interest in comb honey is an increasing number of consumers are out of touch with their farms and without their food system. And the more you can, I see it as a real opportunity to provide a little education, something unique they can't get someplace else, so they know what the heck to do with it.
Julie, there's a question on finding printable round labels. Maybe you have a good source for some of that labeling information?
I can provide a list of sources. I can't just suggest one, but if they want to send me an email at fox.264, I can send some labeling suppliers. I see a need for honey packaged little pixie sticks, which fits naturally into that whole snacking trend. And you're right, one serving, easy to eat. I like that example because not only does it take advantage of the snacking trend, but other food trends that are out there. And you've seen that even with something as has been around forever, like not only honey, but milk. And you'll see now milk sold at convenience stores in these different packaging based on, people aren't just buying milk by the gallon, are they? No, they're really promoting it as single serving, easy. In fact, when I was talking to a producer yesterday, they have, and I've got it sitting next to me right now, a small bag of cut up carrots with a label on called Fresh Kids. Fun characters, really took advantage of a lot of different things to make something like happen. But yeah, I think there is a need for honey packaged in little pixie sticks. A great way to promote honey and introduce, I guess I'll take that one other step. In the marketing, transition, you want to first create awareness that you're there, that you have these products. You want to get people to pay attention to you. Then you want to quickly move them from awareness to trial. And those pixie sticks are another great way to do that and provide a good experience and opportunity, especially then if you take that trial experience, whether it be a literal one like with a pixie stick or an online video of your farm and what it's like, that trial experience, and then quickly move them from awareness to trial to becoming a customer. And then once they're a customer, reinforcing it and going after the loyalty so that they not only become a customer, but they can become what's called a friend or a fan.
Julie, there was a question about product liabilities and what some of those product liabilities might be. I don't know if that's a chunk you want to try to bite off right now, but maybe some words on that.
With product liability insurance, I wouldn't be scared of that at all, because you can get just basic product liability coverage, and that's good for any type of product. So I don't think it's so specific to your type of honey product, but just that general liability that what if something happens, that a customer makes a claim against a certain type of product, to make sure that you have some level of coverage or some level of protection with that. But if you want to talk more about that, send me an email and we can go more in depth on the whole product safety or product liability considerations, and sometimes those go hand in hand.
Great, thanks, Julie. And I did post your email up there in the chat pod, so fox.264@osu.edu. I want to thank you, Julie, for all of your great information and your time this morning. And folks, if you'll give Julie a quick thank you in the chat pod, that would be great. If you have final questions for Julie, she'll be around for just a minute. But